just have a seat for just a few minutes? All right, so part of the schedule of my life, Monday afternoons I kind of disappear because there is a sermon that has to be read for the next Sunday. And I don't, as most of you know, I throw my sermons out. I don't keep them from week to week or year to year. So I'm always looking at it fresh, although I know the fourth Sunday of Easter is always Good Shepherd Sunday. And of course, I knew this Sunday was Mother's Day. So I'm sitting there and I'm saying, all right, you've only done this for 44 years, but what are you going to do? Not going to be about Mother's Day. That's not liturgical. And besides, we're going to pray for moms and bless moms and appreciate moms. And after coffee hour is over, I'm going to go down and visit my mom's grave, which is now my Mother's Day anymore for the last couple of years. And then I said, okay, Good Shepherd Sunday. We have all of this Good Shepherd music coming. I didn't realize I was going to give you an extra piece to hold on to. Preach about Jesus as Good Shepherd. Been there, done that, boring. You'll turn it off. And then I looked at the first reading. And maybe because it was the reminder that I'm going to visit my mom's grave, I was just so struck, which is why I was so glad when Stephen said he would be willing to read it. We are given a vision of Peter walking into a funeral of a woman whose name was Tabitha. One of the really beautiful, powerful incidents which is found in the Acts of the Apostles. So let me start this way, first of all. When you become a priest, you know that not only are you going to celebrate the funeral liturgies of your parishioners and your former parishioners, you're going to celebrate it for your friends, should you outlive them. You're going to celebrate that funeral liturgy for your mom or dad, or both, as I have done. And you know that's coming. That's part of the job. You take that on. And I can tell you as a person who does funerals professionally, every funeral is so unique, so different, even though technically it shouldn't be, because I would not surprise you to tell you when you give people choices of readings and prayers and things they're going to say in their eulogies, people pick so many of the same things, and yet every funeral is so different as it reflects upon that different light. You'll hear the same kind of readings, the same kind of things in a eulogy. I have a friend of mine, honest to God, he has two funeral sermons, and he alternates A-B. And he's been doing that for over 40 years. A-B, A-B. What I find striking are the mementos that you find at either at the funeral house or at the church the next day. The pictures that are shown that really make this person's life kind of stand out. I also met with one of my former students this past week who's now been a priest for 6 years or so, and for the first time ever, I guess church being pulled into the 21st century kicking and screaming. I don't know if this works, and I don't know if this is the funeral or the future, but he said at the funeral in the church, in the place where there were photos, were 2 cell phones that you could scroll through and find a picture. Okay, yeah, I had the same reaction, Ron. I looked at it and said, yeah, but I'm a dinosaur, so don't go by me, all right? Well, what are the symbols of a person's life? What are going to be the final things that people remember us by? And of course, you've been to enough, you've seen those symbols. There's an American flag for a veteran, maybe a cross, it may be a vestment. I was telling Mimi before, I wore this vestment today especially because this was the gift that my mom gave mom and dad, but it was mostly mom, for ordination. This is the vestment I was ordained in, and this will be the vestment I will be buried in. Okay? And no, I don't have a favorite vestment. It's not like a dress. I should have answered that properly, but it's a legitimate question that you asked me before. I'm hoping that there will be a Mets cap at the side of the funeral, but I hope there's more than that. Actually, I have Jeff Eggington's Mets cap, if anyone needs to know. That was his wish, and it's in my office. And no, I don't pray to it, even though the kneeler is under the Mets cap. All right, for those who've asked me. Pictures of kids, pictures of grandkids, awards. So this morning, Stephen reads in the first reading this very interesting, almost intimate moment that we're almost, not quite, but almost intrusive in. We're told that a woman has died. We're not given any information about her. Her name is Tabitha. That's all we know about her. We don't know whether she's young or old. We're told that in addition to the body that's lying there in the room, there are a bunch of widows, and all they say are widows, and we make the assumption, old women. Not necessarily. In that culture where the age of life the life expectancy was not the same as ours, some of them could have been young women. The point is, as widows, they are without pension, they are without protection, and they have to depend on other people's generosity. That's the status of women in that culture who don't have the protection of a man in their life. And we're told about her that she was a skilled seamstress. She used to sew clothing for her family, for her clients, and because she was designated as this very charitable woman, obviously she did so for the needy. And they were talking about her, and they were holding up things. If you mentioned with Stephen, you remember the word you read, what they were holding up? The reader never remembers what they read. I'm not embarrassing you, I do the same thing. Anybody? Tunic. Do you know what a tunic is? Yeah, but what is a tunic? It's an article of clothing. The key thing was, it's basically a piece of underwear. It's the unisex underwear that men and women both wore at that time in that culture. They would wear something over that, male or female designated different types of clothing, but basically men and women wore the same type of undergarment before. And she obviously had been making them, perhaps for some of those women in the room. And they're there basically spending time with the body of a very decent, loving person. And that got me to thinking, as I share with you today, where I ask you a question. And the question is, hey, I went to the fundraiser for that the Antioch Baptist Choir did for the Katona Food Pantry last week. It was at their church. And their pastor, when he gets up and talks, the person at the organ is playing behind him. And every phrase he gets organ music behind him. I like that. That is cool. So if you can do that again. So the question is, what are the objects that should be there that would mark your passing? If people were going to know you for who you are, what are the symbols of your life? Would it show a good life? A life by what standards? Of church, of culture, of country, of this century? And what's that good life determined by? How much respect you received or got in your years? That people loved you, that people were afraid of you? That you made lots of money? You gave lots of money away, you made very little, you own lots of stuff, your grandchildren adored you, as they all do. That you had the biggest widescreen TV in your man cave? That the guys are in charge today. That you took the most vacations, you had the most toys. In my world, that the bishop kissed your ring. When all was said and done, and the story of your life is told, and it all matters, what are the symbols that God will recognize you by? And that's what I'm taking from today. Here we are as church. Here we are being told specifically the one thing you need to be recognized by, the fact that you are part of his sheepfold. You are a sheep of his pasture. So I'm circling back around to the shepherd theme. Aspire to a life that is well lived, that you hear his voice. You hear the voice within your soul, within your conscience. That you live your life knowing the Lord is your shepherd. And it's not just a pretty piece of poetry that gets read on state funeral occasions. But it's how you really live your life. And that every symbol, every sign, everything that marks who you are, ultimately leads back to the fact the Lord is your shepherd. And people see that. That's who we are as believers. A life well lived puts me with other sheep in that flock who are as imperfect and as fragile as I am, who come together on a weekly basis or as often as they can to listen to the word, to be fed at God's table, and to be known as a person who really does live a Christ-like life, even though imperfectly. And if I can steal a line from a person who's I've never met, but whose writings I've read extensively, he was the chaplain at Harvard for many, many years. Actually, Jenny knew him as her chaplain when she was an undergrad studying there. His name is Peter Gomes. And Peter Grumps has a great line. He says, ultimately the purpose of us all is not to make a living, it's to make a life. And there's a real difference between the two. You are going to sing additionally in the rest of this service that the Lord is your shepherd. Realize what that means. And when your life's journey is over and the symbols of your life are put around you, will people know that you really did hear his voice? You knew that he called you by name, and you did follow wherever he led you. Amen.
Amen.